So the Naruto world has been at peace for what feels about 15 years. I believe in one of the latest episodes of Boruto, it was stated it's been at the very least 13 to 15 years since the last Great Shinobi War, the fourth Great Shinobi War, Madara, Obito, all that shit that went down, and Kaguya, of course. That was a while ago, and the world's been at peace since then. But based on the beginning of Boruto, you definitely know at the very least there's going to be some carnage and destruction based on the scenery, based on the fight between Boruto and Kawaki. You know that shit is about to get real. So let's talk about the potential for a fifth Great Shinobi War. Now you gotta think for a second, okay, the Kawaki situation at first glance, you could argue, well, maybe it's just an isolated attack similar to the Pain Invasion, right? The Pain Invasion wasn't necessarily a war, it was more so an isolated attack, and, he fucked up the village. So there's definitely a potential that this could not be the fifth Great Shinobi War, but at the same time, you gotta think, well, can this one guy, Kawaki, whoever he may be, if he's just actually some guy named Kawaki we haven't been introduced to in the manga and the anime and whatnot, does he have the capabilities to get through every single shinobi in the Leaf, possibly even from the other villages as well, destroy the Hokage mountain, and all of these things on top of the implications that we've seen that he potentially is responsible for the death or disappearance of Naruto and even possibly Sasuke. Now quickly to talk about the Sasuke thing, because a lot of people say, well, there's no confirmation or anything about Sasuke. Well, just look at Boruto in the actual fight against Kawaki. You see that he has Sasuke's headband, which I do think that he got it during the Boruto movie, so you could argue, okay, maybe that's different, but he also has the cloak, which I believe that's Sasuke's cloak as well, and it seems that there's a possibility that Sasuke could be dead, or he's at the very least MIA at the moment as well. So can this one guy, Kawaki, be responsible for all that? That's what makes me think that this isn't just an isolated event, an isolated attack. It's more so possibly the fifth Great Shinobi War. And it also got to make you think, well, if there's a fifth Great Shinobi War, let's start talking about who are going to be the enemies. Obviously, we know it's this Kawaki guy, assuming that this is the fifth Great Shinobi War. But where else are the enemies? Because I don't believe for a split second that this one guy can get through all the people. Because you got to remember at the same time, if there is a war that goes down, there's not only Naruto and Sasuke in the village. There's other villages that'll easily join in, depending on, unless there's some friction between the Leaf and them that, comes about at some given point in the Boruto story. But you got the Raikage, you have all of these people that'll show up, Darui, you have the Kazekage, Mizukage, you got a lot of people. But then on top of that, even in the Leaf, from the Chojis to the Shikamarus to the Konohamarus, there's a lot of people that this Kawaki guy would have to get through, which makes me think that there's definitely a lot more people behind him than just, him doing this by himself, which definitely, again, makes me think there's going to be a fifth Great Shinobi War. Now you got to ask, who do we have in the story that's left that can help aid him? Now, we know in the Boruto manga, which if you don't read the manga, spoiler alert, there's a group that is essentially seemingly the new Akatsuki. They're called Kata, and they look like they're formidable at the very least. Based on chapter, I believe, 16, if I'm not mistaken, they look formidable. They're really strong, seemingly, and it looks like they're already about to throw down. But the thing about Kara, you got to think, for the people thinking that, okay, well, maybe they could be the ones that are responsible and lead Kawaki into this, is that as of right now, where the story is, Boruto, Sarada, and the rest of the gang are still young. When we see the fight between Boruto and Kawaki in the beginning of the series, you know that there's a time skip, and there's possibly a good, 2 to 5 year time skip, because Boruto looks a lot older when we see him in that little clip, that little small image that we get at the beginning of the anime and the beginning of the manga. So you know some time passed. So if it's Kara, then it would have to be either that A, Kara doesn't completely get stopped at this point in the manga and maybe they go into hiding, or B, it's not Kara at all, or C, it could have some remnants of Kara that kind of lead the ideals into people like Kawaki that ultimately leads into this big war. But I don't believe, at the very least, a good majority of the members we've seen of Kara thus far are the ones responsible for this war in the future, because you would assume, we see them in the story as of right now, Boruto and them are young. How are they going to last all throughout a time skip unless Boruto is just fighting them as he's growing, and everybody in the Leaf and all the shinobi nations and whatnot are fighting Kara, and years are passing and years are passing, which I don't necessarily see that happening. I mean, at the end of the day, one of the fundamentals about Naruto right now, which it definitely clashes with an ideal, which I'll probably talk about a whole other video about this, regarding Madara talking about there will never be truly peace because there will always be some force that comes to disrupt that or whatever. But I don't think that it's going to be that bad to the point where we're going to just have years upon years of them just being in war, and Boruto and them are going to grow up in war. I just don't see that happening, because at that point then you would definitely say, yeah, Madara was 100% right, that come on, like, you had 15 years of peace and then many years of just non-stop war, it wouldn't make much sense. I mean, I guess another thing you could argue about is something along the way happens where all of the nations fall out, and potentially this could be a result of that. But between the camaraderie that was created between the United Nations or the Allied Shinobi forces of, the Fourth Great Shinobi War, I don't really see them ever getting to a point of fighting each other. The difference was there was a generation gap prior to this. That's why a lot of these people, they had different mindsets. The previous Raikage A and all of these different people, Onoki, they were kind of a different mindset than the Allied Shinobi force of now. They're more so like comrades. You could argue maybe they're even potentially friends. So I don't see them ever taking it to that point. So you definitely got to rule out that it's going to be the Allied Shinobi forces coming together and fighting each other. I just don't see that happening either. So it's either going to be remnants of Kara. It's not going to be the Allied Shinobi forces, because again, why are they going to fight after they had all this and they even had to band together to stop the Otsutsuki? Great segue into let's talk about the Otsutsuki. Now, the Otsutsuki, whether you want to argue it's a plot device or not, it definitely seems that it's a plot device in a sense to continue having these incredibly strong villains, are a definite possibility for future aiding of whatever war is to come, because the Otsutsuki essentially were created in a way to have big and powerful villains continue on even into this next generation. Now, we do know that we got rid of Momoshiki and Kinshiki, and I believe there's even one more Otsutsuki that is going to be introduced in the anime that was originally supposed to be a part of the story but got scrapped due to time. So there'll be another one, but I think he'll be defeated along the way too. So if it is an Otsutsuki, it has to be a brand new one. Maybe it could be something to do with Tonetti, not himself, but maybe a relative or something like that. Although again, the Tonetti situation, because the way he's even being brought into the anime, because we know in the end of the last, he kind of had a mind change and he became good. He's walking the narrow path now or whatever. And even in the anime, they're kind of hinting that he's still around and he's trying to help Boruto to, quell the fires of hate in the world. So it won't be Tonetti, but it definitely could be an Otsutsuki. But even then, I don't necessarily see this Kawaki guy being the leader of a giant Otsutsuki attack, because he doesn't even look like an Otsutsuki himself. And I don't really see the Otsutsuki, based on being this alien master race, kind of wanting to team up with some shinobi from Earth. Like, I just don't see that happening either. So with this Fifth Great Shinobi War, one of the things you got to think of, the people that are going to be involved haven't shown up yet. Whoever is rocking with Kawaki, whether it be that certain members of the Leaf eventually betray, or certain members of all the different Allied Shinobi forces eventually betray. Maybe it's from the next generation, Kawaki being included. It could be maybe, Genki that we've seen in the anime. We haven't seen him in the manga, so that'll be a little bit interesting to see how they handle it. But it could be Kawaki is Iwabe, Genki follows him, Sumide eventually once again goes rogue and follows them. So it could be that. It could be just shinobi that we have not seen at all. I mean, if we're introducing new villains and new technology with the Kara group, who's to say that there ain't more people out there? I mean, I hate to keep on harping on this. Madara was somewhat right. You're not going to kill hate, and it's a shame, because the very powerful message of Naruto always stems back into what Jiraiya said about trying to find peace one day and getting people to understand each other. Madara was like, no, people aren't going to rock like that. That's why he wanted to do the Moon Eye plan to find peace in his way. We know what happened there, but it would have to be that there's a whole new group, essentially. If it's not Kara, if it's not remnants of Kara, if it's not the Otsutsuki, and if it's not the Allied Shinobi forces, because whoever it may be, they have to be strong enough to be able to fight all of the top tier shinobi that we have in the Leaf. Because don't get it twisted, just because the new generation aren't the strongest in the pot, the old generation is still around. We still have all of Ino Shikacho. We still have Sai, of course, Naruto and Sasuke. That's a lot to take down if you're going to conquer and destroy the village, opposed to what it was back in the day. I don't think those shinobi were on the level of these shinobi, because we know in the Naruto story, the next generation is always more stronger and superior than the previous. And there's a possibility that this new curse mark that's been introduced regarding, Boruto having it and seemingly Kawaki having the same thing, and it also being related to Kara, maybe it could be something along the lines of, again, remnants of Kara. Maybe Kawaki is able to share some of his power with up-and-coming shinobi, because at the end of the day, if there are shinobi that are capable of the feats of taking on top-tier shinobi of the Leaf, destroying the Leaf, the Hokage Mountains are completely obliterated in the beginning of Boruto, then they gotta have something behind them, because if not, where the hell were these shinobi to begin with? So it could potentially be that Kawaki's the leader, and he has a bunch of people, and he's feeding them off of the power of this curse mark. We don't know exactly how it works. You could assume that, well, if he gets a grasp of it, and Boruto has a grasp of it, because obviously he's able to activate it, maybe he's able to use it. Another possibility, which I wouldn't necessarily like this one, but it's a possibility, is once again bringing back Edo Tensei. Now you gotta think for a second, wait a minute. We're bringing Edo Tensei into the play. Are we gonna bring back everybody that we fought in the 4th Great Shinobi War? I mean, I guess this would be, if they were ever going to do it, although I necessarily wouldn't like it, this would be a good opportunity to bring back Jiraiya. Although again, I say leave Jiraiya. He left a great legacy. But it would be interesting to see Jiraiya once again reunite with Naruto, and also at the same time see his interactions with Boruto, because that was essentially, you know, that was Naruto's father figure, you know what I'm saying? That was his grandfather figure. That was the person that really, not necessarily raised him, but guided him, and he looks up to more than probably anybody. So it would be interesting to see. Again, the Edo Tensei route, I don't really want it to go that way, but again, where is this giant force that is going to be able to smash the Leaf, maybe even take on the allied Shinobi forces and do all these things, unless it's a really, because you got to think, the allied Shinobi force, if they're all working together with the Leaf, they're not going to allow something like this to happen. So it would have to be a very quick and very isolated attack, like this all happened within a few minutes, because if not, they have cell phones in the Narutoverse now, okay? They don't need to send a bird with a letter. They could just, yo, Raikage, Tsuchikage, Mizukage, Kazekage, come through real quick. And they'd be there very shortly. So you gotta think that there's a big possibility that this is a very quick and isolated war. If it is a war, again, it could just be an attack. It could just be the pain invasion. But I don't know. It's a lot more, in my opinion, to be able to wreak that kind of havoc nowadays in the Narutoverse, opposed to what it was back then. Even Tsunade wasn't necessarily the type of Hokage that Naruto is strength-wise and stuff like that. Look what Madara did to all the Kage back then. But Madara's a beast in and of himself, so we don't really need to get into that. Then you got to think, well, the new generation, what's going to be going on with them? Because they have a lot to grow. If you watch episode 24 of Boruto, then you know that the previous generation, they have their doubts. They have their doubts, or they had, whatever you want to say, regarding the new generation. They have a lot of growing up to do, because aside from, you know, Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki, and maybe a couple other select ones, they really haven't had some real stuff happen to them. So there's definitely going to have to be some room for them to grow prior to even this whole big war going down. Because let's start off with Sarada. I mean, Sarada, there's a possibility. There's many different options and ways to grow her strength. Obviously, she has a Sharingan, and the Sharingan can go a long way. Do I see her getting Rinnegan at some given point? I don't know. There is a way of doing it. I'll get into that in a whole other video as well. But I definitely see Sarada at that point, because they still look young. I don't think Sarada, if she is going to become Hokage, will be Hokage at that given point, but she'll be a strong force to be reckoned with as well. And you got to think, if it's just Boruto and Kawaki, where is the rest of the generation? Which again leads me to believe there's a lot more people. It could be something to do with Zetsu. I would hate that as well. That's very unlikely as well. But there could be a Zetsu army. There could be many different things, because where's Sarada? Where's Mitsuki? Is Orochimaru involved in this? Because let's be real, we know Orochimaru is still going to be creeping and lurking around, being the creep that he is. Who knows? Maybe this could all be Orochimaru. Maybe Orochimaru finally got to the point where he's doing what he wanted to do, and he's testing the new generation. Maybe all of this could be leading from him, although we do know that the curse mark that Boruto has, and what seemingly Kawaki will have, isn't related to Orochimaru's curse mark. It could be a new one that he created. It could be something totally different. He could be backing. I would love to see in this war a crazy fight where Orochimaru is actually on the good guy's side, genuinely trying to protect the new generation, doing what he should have did back in the day. Just talking about that, getting me goosebumps. Doing what Jiraiya would have loved for him to do, doing what Tsunade would have loved for him to do. I would love to see that. And then speaking of Tsunade, we still have the previous Kage as well, which again leads me to believe they need some force, or they need a way to get rid of all these people, because Tsunade, incredible force from the previous generation. There's a lot of people from that generation and the previous Kage at that they would have to get around in order to do what they've done, or Kawaki's done at the very least, to the Leaf Village. So I'm definitely curious what you guys' theories are regarding a potential 5th Great Shinobi War. For starters, if there is a 5th Great Shinobi War, do you think it's going to be this whole Kawaki situation? Is that a war? Is that an isolated attack? Also, you gotta ask, why is everything destroyed and you only see one-on-one? Where is all of the other people? Where's the new generation? Where's the allied Shinobi forces? What truly happened to Naruto and Sasuke? How could one guy do all of this? Also, who is his army? Is it an army that we just haven't seen before? New people? Is it remnants of Kara? Because again, Kara has this connection with that curse mark that Boruto has, so is it leading something into that? Could Kara be the roots to what ultimately Kawaki will become and who he is? Also, do you think maybe there's going to be an Edo Tensei revival. I mean, I would hate and love seeing somebody like Jiraiya come back just because it's like, leave Jiraiya the way it is. It was perfect, but at the same time, it would be interesting to see his interaction, see Naruto being Hokage, seeing Boruto and shit like that. I would like to see that. Also, Orochimaru, what do you think will be his involvement? Would it be the same thing that of what he did in the 4th Great Shinobi War? Will he man up this time and actually try and protect the new generation? And what's going on with the allied shinobi forces while all this is going on, when they have cell phones that they can just hit them up in 10 seconds and say, yo, come through, we got war going on. I mean, the mountains are destroyed. The city behind the village destroyed. Something crazy went down, and if this is the 5th Great Shinobi War, it's going to be absolutely insane, and I'm dying to see who's Kawaki's people that back him into this war. But that's all I have for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm Fineb World, and as always, people, have an awesome day.